Smiley, the Friendly Podcast Guide. Every week, I put out an episode about a specific podcast to help you figure out if it's your next favorite podcast. Those come out on Tuesdays. I also put out another episode each Thursday that's a little more personal. Either a list of podcasts I like for the season we're in, how I'm using podcasts in my own life, or something like that. This is one of those episodes, and this week it's all about uplifting podcasts. Last weekend, I got together virtually with my whole church and watched General Conference, which is when the leaders of my church, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, gives us direction and guidance for our lives. It's one of my favorite weekends of the entire year because of how uplifting it is. So I decided to share some great uplifting podcasts for this week's episode. If you're intrigued by my favorite weekend of the year, you can actually listen to all of the messages that the speakers gave last weekend on the General Conference podcast. The show is described like this: messages of hope, peace, and of our Savior Jesus Christ from the most recent General Conference of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Each episode is 10 to 15 minutes long. I would recommend starting with whatever episode grabs your attention. These episodes don't go in any particular order, so you can just scroll through and pick one that looks helpful to you. If astrology is something that fascinates you, I recommend giving the podcast Your Spiritual Best Friend a try. It's a podcast that combines mental health, psychology, and astrology. Host Josh Sanchez is a grad student who's studying to become a mental health counselor, and he also uses astrology to see how the moon and planets are impacting our lives. Each episode is 45 minutes to an hour long. I'd recommend starting with the Friendly Podcast Guide episode, where I talked with Josh all about his show. He told us about why he started the show and how he likes to use psychology and astrology to tackle mental health questions. Before I tell you about more uplifting podcasts, we're going to take a quick break to talk about Olive and June nail polish. Talk about uplifting. I love having nail polish on, but I don't handle it well when my nail polish starts to chip a day or two after I paint my nails. That is where Olive and June comes in. I use their Mani system, and my nail polish will stay on for a week with no chipping. It brings me so much joy every time I look at my nails with these fun colors. I want you to have that joy too. You can get 20% off a Mani or Pedi system by using the affiliate link in the show notes. If you're looking for uplifting messages from moms who are smart, kind, and really good at building community, I recommend listening to the Mommying While Muslim podcast. Zeba and Uzma are the hosts, and they do a great job of giving a voice to the Muslim moms and women who live in the United States, while also being welcoming to moms of all faiths. Each episode is around 30 to 45 minutes long. If you haven't listened to this podcast before, I recommend starting with the Friendly Podcast Guide episode all about Mommying While Muslim, where I got to interview Uzma and Zeba about their show and got into some lovely conversations about motherhood and community. If you know about Brene Brown, then you probably think she is so cool, like I do. When I found out she had a podcast, I was so excited to gain even more insights into my life through listening to her show. And I wasn't disappointed. Her podcast is called Unlocking Us with Brene Brown, and each episode is full of gems that can make you feel better about yourself and learn how to improve your life. Each episode is about 45 minutes to an hour long, and she does use language you may not want your littles hearing, so keep that in mind when you're listening. If you're new to Unlocking Us, I recommend starting with the very first episode called Brene on FFTs. It's a great introduction to Brene and the vibe of the podcast. As a stay-at-home mom, I don't always get to have very many adult conversations, let alone meaningful, deep ones, but sometimes I can at least pretend to have them when I listen to the podcast Deep, Meaningful Conversations. Alex and Rivki are the hosts, and they talk about Judaism and what it's like to be a frum woman in the world we live in. And they always leave me feeling better about myself and the world around me. Each episode is around an hour long. I got to talk all about this podcast on the Friendly Podcast Guide, episode 19, where I was able to talk about what the vibe of the show is and why Rivki and Alex even started the show. I highly recommend listening to that episode to see if Deep, Meaningful Conversations is a good fit for you. All of these podcasts have helped me become a better person and made me feel good about myself along the way. Hopefully, you found one in this list that can do that for you too. Also, if you want nail polish that stays on for a whole week without chipping, try Olive & June's Mani or Pedi system and get 20% off by clicking the affiliate link in the show notes. Talk to you soon. If you're looking for uplifting messaging, oh my gosh.